Hello everyone, welcome to Clickheads, I'm Eddie the Chump, and today we're going to be talking about the biggest update Valorant has seen thus far in its closed beta. There's a huge amount of information to be broken down, so I'm going to waste no time reading through what I think are the highlights in it for you and giving some thoughts. The full notes are in the description, so you can read them for yourself in full as well. First up, Jeff Lander, who is a comms associate at Riot, had this to say. All rifles have been updated to make single tap and burst fire more efficient. The idea here is to support the viability of all rifle shooting styles, tap, burst and spray, when used in optimal situations. This is tied to gun recovery time, which we'll touch on more in the notes below. Sage, Cypher, Omen, Viper, Brimstone and Phoenix have all undergone changes, in part to better align them with their intended roles and to balance abilities that we found to be either too weak or too powerful in common situations. Other highlights, the cost of some agents' abilities have been tuned to better reflect their impact on the game. We also lowered the cap on the amount of credits a team can bank during a match to help opposing teams catch up, so you can't get over 9,000. And the spike now automatically falls when it gets stuck in an elevated location. You can stop bugging your tall friend now. As I said, there's a lot there that we can discuss, but the devil's in the details. Let's get straight into it. Weapon updates. You will no longer enter the walking accuracy state when transitioning from run to stop. We noticed players were entering a walking accuracy state during their run to stop transition that made it appear as if the shots they fired/landed were done at full speed. The dead zone accuracy speed threshold has been increased from 25% to 30%. Now that you can't gain walk accuracy while transitioning from a run to a stop, we've also slightly increased the size of the dead zone full accuracy state to make it a bit easier to get an accurate shot out quickly. So they have made the threshold on moving and being accurate harsher, in that you won't automatically enter the walking state when coming to a stop, but they have made the threshold for what counts as a full stop ever so slightly wider. In practical terms, you will probably have to get more used to counter-strafing after this patch, as it was almost unnecessary up until this point. You could just let go of your movement keys and you'd be accurate just as quickly. That slowing down process through running to walk to stop is no longer there. You will either count as running or stopped. So being exact with your movement will be what you have to do moving forward. That's a positive for me. There will be a skill gap adjustment for sure, but overall I think it's a good change. All rifles. Recovery times on all rifles have been updated, which should make tap and burst firing more efficient. Inaccuracy is accrued anytime the weapon is refired prior to a complete duration of a weapon's respective gun recovery time. And the base walk accuracy has been nerfed from 0.6 degrees to 0.8. We felt like walk spraying with rifles was a little more effective than we'd like, particularly at longer ranges. We're going to pull back on this accuracy slightly and continue to monitor. This had been a pet peeve of mine, and I'm glad they're taking a look at it. They have nerfed the base accuracy of all rifles while walking. This will be a noticeable difference to a lot of players, especially when you consider that up until this point, you entered a walk state while coming to a stop. Spraying while moving at all is nerfed. You can be sure of that. The game has just gotten a lot stricter. Some people might be mad about that, and I understand, but on a fundamental level, I think this makes sense. So let's talk about the weapon stats in general. Vandal. Horizontal, your recoil reduced by 15% while crouched and stationary. This was intended to be the case and now properly matches the crouch benefits of other rifles. The Vandal's gun recovery time has gone from 0.4 seconds to 0.375 seconds, and its tap efficiency has gone from 4 to 6. So less horizontal recoil is a straight buff. I might have to reconsider my Vandal versus Phantom position now. You also get more accuracy while crouched, which apparently was not the case before, and that's good to know, although that probably was a bug. The recoil reset value has been shortened, meaning in between bursts and taps, the gun will be able to be fired accurately again in quicker fashion, and its overall accuracy value while tapping has been made even better. I didn't even think it was that bad. The Vandal has been significantly improved, as long as you're skilled enough to learn how to use it. Moving on, the Phantom has fixed an issue where the gun recovery time was higher than intended. The gun recovery time has also been changed at 0.55 seconds to 0.35, and its tap efficiency has gone from a value of 3 to a value of 4. Again, the Phantom will now be better at tapping and will have its recoil reset faster to make tapping and bursting more viable. It now has the tap efficiency of the old Vandal, which was great, so this gun has just been buffed as well. The Bulldog's automatic fire has been tuned. It now has the improved faster recoil reset at 0.35 seconds, and the Guardian has had its recovery time tuned from 0.4 seconds to 0.35. And as you might be able to note about all the rifles, their gun recovery time is now a lot closer to each other. Now, the machine guns have also received some love because they're seriously underperforming in comparison to the other weapons. Let's go through those changes now. The Ares. Its price has been reduced from 1700 to 1600 credits. Firing error. This value is a curve that has intermediate values between each bullet. Bullet 2 has significantly less error than bullet 1, and so on. Bullet 1 has gone from 1.0 degrees to 0.8, bullet 5 0.85 degrees to 0.75, and bullet 10 0.75 degrees to 0.7. It also has less horizontal recoil after the first 8 bullets, and that change has also been carried over to the Odin as well. Essentially, the firing error or spread has been reduced on the Ares, it's been made cheaper, and the horizontal recoil has been reduced on that and the Odin after the first 8 bullets. I'm a little bit unsure about machine gun buffs. They've always felt like a meme weapon to me, largely. Anyone using them against you is usually doing so as a mark of disrespect. Less horizontal recoil and firing error on the Ares will definitely make it easier to use. Let's hope that these weapons don't become too good. As Riot say, they want them to remain in their role of bullet hoses, just be better at that role. Time will tell. Smoke spam and wallbangs, here we come. Now let's move on to the agents. The first on the list is Sage, and I think it's fair to say that she has been nerfed. The notes read, slow orb zone duration decreased from 9 seconds to 7 seconds, slow orb slowing amount decreased from 65% to 50%, and Riot added this, we all know Sage is OP, we've decided to try and reduce some of her stopping power while still allowing her to fulfill her role as the primary staller in Valorant. These changes aim to reduce the overall efficiency of her slow orb, especially if they are chained back to back. That's refreshingly upfront from Riot. They and we think she's too good, and they don't want to delete her, just make her kit less oppressive. The slow orbs getting a duration nerf, and in how much they can actually slow you, is huge. I don't think this will kill the character, but you will definitely have more options against her now than you did in the past. Moving on, Cypher's cyber cages no longer slow enemies that move through it, and that's massive. Riot say, we've always envisioned Cypher as a premier sentinel gathering info on his enemies and picking them off, but the slow on the cage was allowing him to move into Sage's territory by stalling an entire enemy team. We still think this will be a tool he uses to buy some time, but enemies will now have more options when pushing his defenses, especially when coordinated. And the spy cam cooldown, when destroyed, has been increased from 30 to 45 seconds. Riot say, spy cams have been flying into enemy territory like Sova darts at the start of rounds because the punishment for losing one to an enemy is so low. Hopefully this change pushes you to find a safe hiding place for your initial camera. Please not inside a box. Ha 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 ha. So these are nerfs to be sure as well, and it's interesting that Riot have decided to nerf both the agents that are pretty much dominant picks. You could argue they determined how Valorant is played at the top level to such a high degree, any changes to them will change the rest of the game. I don't think they'll disappear or anything, but having 2 agents with slow as powerful as this did mean that you had to try and get that utility out of them first before you could do anything, slowing the pace of every match. Now, things might be a little bit different. Moving on, Omen has had his dark cover smoke duration increased from 12 to 15 seconds. Dark cover smoke projectile speed increased, and the dark cover cooldown increased from 30 to 35 seconds. Riot add, especially at high tier play, we've seen Brimstone become the dominant controller, and we wanted to give his peers a boost to make them more viable while hopefully maintaining their unique playstyles. So that's 2 buffs and a slight nerf. Omen smokes last longer and deploy faster, but the cooldown is longer. I still feel like Brim is the go-to smoke artist, but this makes Omen more compelling for sure. And Viper has had her snakebite radius increased from 350 to 450. Riot add they're increasing snakebite's radius to match other area denial abilities. Viper's acid molly did feel a bit weak in practice. With it having a larger radius, she should be able to control more of the areas of the map you'd ideally want to use this ability on. It does also slow targets, but not by as much as Sage's orbs, and again, this change is aimed at making her more of a competitor to Brim, but outside of specific map tech and one-ways with Poison Cloud, I don't see her taking his place even with this buff. Next up, there's been a change to how tick damage affects abilities that Brim, Viper, and Phoenix have at their disposal. We see you B-hoppers out there jumping through Incendiary, Fireball, and Snakebite while taking no damage. We don't want to completely negate this skill, but we also don't want it to trivialize a whole set of characters' abilities. Height required to jump out of all damaging area denial abilities has been increased from 80 to 120. Snakebite, Fireball, and Incendiary damage tick speed increased, although the total damage per second is unchanged. Essentially, you'll take more damage if you try and B-hop through these abilities from now on. The tick rate has increased to make that damage more efficient, but the overall damage has been kept the same. Basically, the risk-reward factor has been made more fair on the agent using the ability, which I think is fair enough. Next up, some of the agent ability economy has changed. Riot say, "We felt the credit cost of some abilities did not match the impact those abilities brought to a match and made adjustments for a more accurate reflection. Sage Barrier Orb has been increased from 300 to 400 credits, Ray's Blast Pack has been increased from 100 to 200, Phoenix Curveball has been increased from 100 to 200, Brimstone's Incendiary has been increased from 200 to 300, and Jet's Updraft has been reduced from 200 to 100. Okay, so some hugely impactful changes there. Sage now can't buy a Ghost and a Wall on Pistol Round. If she wants to Wall, she'll have to be using a Classic, as a Ghost at 500 and a Wall at 400 means that she can't afford it all. That is good. I'm not sure how I feel about Phoenix's flashes being more expensive. It is kind of his entire kit, but I'll reserve judgment on that. And Jet's Updraft being cheaper is good for her, as movement is something that she should excel at. Next two things that seem small but aren't really. Armor carried over from prior rounds is no longer destroyed when new armor is purchased, allowing you to sell newly purchased armor and return to your previous armor status instead of having no armor. And total credit cap is reduced from 12,000 to 9,000. Riot say, "We're noticing that players/teams who manage to bank a high amount of credits are maintaining a rich economic state for too long, and it becomes a monumental challenge for the opposing team to dethrone their economy." Both of these changes affect economy management, which has been a bit of a problem in certain situations, especially with the cap. Winning the right rounds meant that in certain scenarios, you could keep having full buys almost forever. This lower cap will stop that and force closer matches if your enemies outplay you in a comeback. We'll see how this turns out, but I think I like it, especially as buying double ops will now be way riskier than it was before if you had a big lead. Next up is maps. Split. Attacking teams have been having difficulty finding a foothold in territory control across the map. We've made a few changes that should allow attackers better opportunities to contest A main, mid top, and B tower. Barrier locations, those clear blue walls, have been adjusted across the map to provide attackers more of a foothold into territory control across the map. Defender barrier in B mid has been pulled back. The new barriers are in the entrance to vent and atop the staircase in B tower. Defender barrier has been pulled back to A ramps, and the attacker barrier has been pushed forward to A main. Attacker barrier has also been pushed forward slightly at B main. They've angled the wall on the left interior of B tower when pushing up the stairs from mid. This removes a 50-50 angle check when pushing it into this space, which should make it more approachable for you to try and gain control of B tower. Radianite crate in B has been changed to a metal crate to provide more cover when planting the spike, and revised art to improve performance throughout the map. Now there's a lot here. Essentially Split has been very defender favoured, and they're trying to limit where the defenders can go at the start of rounds to make attacking a bit fairer, and change some of the geometry like B Heaven to not force you into that horrible do I peek left or right. But the biggest plus is that they've tried to optimize Split so that we don't have really bad frame drops anymore, which is a killer change. I don't like Split that much anyway, but the FPS drops made it miserable at times. With all the changes combined, I might even grow to enjoy this map. Next up are some great anti-exploit changes that everyone apart from Cypher players will enjoy. Haven. A new map exploit system is in effect which will have negative effects on anyone trying to escape the play space, as in it'll probably kill you. Updated several floor sections so they now have appropriate material sounds. And Split, Haven and Bind added fixes for Cypher spy camera exploits to all three maps. A huge thank you to everyone who has helped us track these down, including clutch streams we've lurked in for 2 days, writing down every camera placement and fixing them in real time. The backside of spawn barriers are now opaque to prevent some abuse cases, and now the spike will automatically fall from elevated boost positions. They fixed multiple spots where Sova's recon dart could over-penetrate map geometry. Another shout out to everyone that helped us with these as well. So they have fixed the majority of Cypher's glitch camera spots, thank God, and anyone that gets out of bounds on Haven, you will probably die. The bomb is not going to get stuck on walls and other stuff like that, which is great, even if that is a bit of a small use case. If it has happened to you, you know how annoying it can be. The Cypher camera changes are legitimately massive. Everyone has been using the camera in places it can't be seen or shot at. I'm not judging anybody, but I'm very grateful all of the known spots have been fixed. There's probably more that can be found, but at least all of the most obnoxious examples are gone forever. There are some nice UI and quality of life updates in this patch too, but in the bug fixes there are also a few gems that I wanted to highlight. Cypher and Sova will no longer float in the air if the Sage Barrier Orb wall they were standing on is destroyed while they were using using their spy cam or owl drone respectively. Cypher can no longer pick up his trap after an enemy has triggered it, and Sova's owl drone can no longer rapid fire darts if the prior one hits an enemy. There's also been reduced collision size on Sova's arrows so they don't get stuck on corners when fired near them. Overall, this is a massively impactful patch. I can't decide if the agent nerfs or the weapon changes are more significant. They're both potentially huge. Will Cypher and Sage still be must picks? Probably, but more playstyles will now be viable, and don't underestimate how the moving and shooting mechanic changes will make you have to adjust. I think that's a big one. Let me know in the comment section what stuck out to you the most. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. I really hope you enjoyed the video and found the info useful. If you like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified when we upload. Until next time.